One quiet night, the holiday season was nearing its end, as Christmas Eve day was just round the bend. The tree was put up, the lighting all set, with the hopes to be the best Christmas yet. But something was off, not feeling quite right, as the TheArcWielder sat down to record on that night. The wielder felt nauseous, about to be sick. This must be the work of that self-absorbed prick. "I don't understand," he cried to himself. "Why doesn't this bastard not care about his health? He cooks and he eats the worst things I've seen. It's enough to turn the strongest men green. Raw chicken, raw pork, and boatloads of fat. He'd eat almost anything. He'd eat his hat." The wielder grew quiet and let out a deep sigh. "I have to be brave. I must at least try." But what was in store for our fellow here? What sort of content makes a permanent sneer on a cheerful man's face now taken aback, faced with none other than cooking with Jack? So sit you all down, men, ladies, and kin. The real horror show is about to begin. Yes, folks, to wrap up everything we've looked at this holiday season and to put a bookmark in the end of the year, we are ending where we first started with our good old friend Jack Scalfani. But of course, it's Christmas, so we're obligated to look at some of Jack's Christmas dishes, and what better place to turn to than Jack's Bob Cratchit Christmas series. I'm sure most of you are familiar in some capacity with the story of A Christmas Carol and Bob Cratchit, Ebenezer Scrooge's poor, broke bookkeeper that can barely scrape by a Christmas dinner for himself and like his 5 kids. So what better character to take inspiration from when it comes to creating a series of Christmas dishes than somebody that can barely afford a roast goose? So today we're gonna look at a few of the videos in Jack's Bob Cratchit's Christmas series, where he goes and makes, in his words, more rustic Yuletide dishes that are inspired or taken as recipes from around the time of when Christmas Carol is written and takes place. Which could be interesting, you know, you're seeing a lot of Victorian period food, but it's also Jack making it, so on top of being bland British Victorian food, it's also going to be Jack food. If that doesn't spell disaster, I don't know what does. So let's just jump right into it with the first video in the series we're going to be looking at, Old English Sage Dressing. We've already seen Jack make stuffing once a few weeks ago, and we all know the shortcuts he took with that, so this ought to be interesting. Before we begin, as always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We're trying to reach 5,000 subscribers as our next sub goal, and we're seeing how quick we can reach that next milestone. Thanks for all your support.
Okay guys, so I want to say this politely because I don't want to insult anybody, but basically I was always raised that a lot of English recipes are kind of bland.
I think most of us can agree with the notion that Jack is putting forth, that British food is notoriously bland, but we don't need to hear your rationale on why certain cuisines are packed with flavor while others aren't, Jack. We all know why we're here right now.
I got an Old English recipe for sage stuffing, and I'm gonna do it a little bit different because they want me to do one step where I boil my onions. Don't want to boil onions. I'm against boiling in water. I'm just against it. I don't like it. There's so many other ways to cook things, okay?
God, we're not even 2 minutes in and Jack's already espousing his dumb-ass chef beliefs. If you don't know, Jack is against boiling things, point blank period, just for the fact that he thinks it leaches all the nutrition and flavor out of whatever you're boiling. To a certain extent, some things do, yeah, but he's so adamant about the notion that it happens that he has to insert his own opinion on that every chance he gets. You know how certain chefs like Gordon Ramsay, for example, will always take the opportunity when they're given one to slight something like frozen food or ready-to-eat meals? Jack is like that with boiling food.
So I'm probably going to saute the onions before putting the dish together. So come on in, I'll show you the ingredients. Once again, respect to the English.
He wants to create these authentic dishes, not just in this episode, but in most videos that he's made. He always has to have some sort of slight modification to it because there's something in the recipe that he doesn't personally agree with.
And I'm excited to do this Old English recipe. I'm excited to be doing this Bob Cratchit Christmas like you would see on the table in A Christmas Carol. So that's just an idea I've had for years.
Yes, Jack, when I think of an iconic Christmas dinner, I think of the empty, barren table of Bob Cratchit.
All right, so you guys are probably wondering why I got all the bread laying out. I've had it out all night. It's nice and stale. This is going to be my breadcrumbs. So you can use breadcrumbs in this recipe if you want. It'll be in the recipe. Or you can just cube up this stale bread.
Unlike what we saw previously, for this stuffing/dressing, Jack is actually using stale bread. Go figure that he would use the proper ingredient for a dish that he's making for himself and his family while cutting corners for a dish that he's shipping off to a soldier overseas. Interpret that how you will.
Okay, so you may want to do this different, but let me tell you how I was taught to make your breadcrumbs. I just simply, I wanted 4 rows of bread, so I would just take the stale bread, cut right through it. Okay.
Jack is really keen on using a lot of kitchen gadgets and showing off what he owns a lot of the time. I'm surprised he didn't just put this in like a slap chop or something like that, and he's actually manually cutting the bread with a knife. Completely off topic. I don't talk about it very much for obvious reasons, but when we cover more recent Jack videos like this, it's always kind of the elephant in the room in regards to his arm. Jack's right arm is not fully paralyzed, but pretty beaten up from, the 4 strokes he's had at this point. If he wanted to be innovative and creative with his channel, he loves different weird cooking gadgets and things like that. I think it would actually be interesting and beneficial if he started some sort of series where he reviewed different gadgets that allowed people with disabilities to still be able to cook in the kitchen. That would be a genuinely neat and useful idea for him to do.
All right, starting to bust, put a little onion in there. See how it does. Start sizzling. That's good. Drop your onions in there. Oops. Okay, onions are looking pretty good. Shrinking up a little bit, sauteing a little bit.
Jack is the only cook I've ever seen who can somehow start to caramelize the edges of an onion, but still have it be almost completely white in the middle.
Do you know how much I've wanted to add something to this dish? I'm trying to stay true to form. The only thing I did was I didn't boil the onions. If you want to boil the onions, you can, but I sauteed the onions in the butter, okay? But I wanted to add bacon to this. I wanted to add nuts and raisins to this, celery and carrots to this, but I can't because it completely destroys the dish.
So adding any other ingredients would compromise the dish, but preparing one of the ingredients in a completely different method than what was told to you, completely fine. I've never had a boiled onion, but I feel like I can make a pretty educated guess that a boiled onion is going to taste different than a sauteed onion.
Go. I'm just gonna take a little bit of butter, pinch off a little bit there, pinch off a little bit around the plate. All right, let's go over the baking rule. We've dotted it with butter, we've loaded it up. We're gonna take our cover, put it on right now, keep it warm. Here's the deal: 350 degrees. You're gonna bake this 25 to 30 minutes. Then you're gonna take the lid off and bake it for another 10 minutes to crisp up the outside, okay?
Step right up and place your bets now, ladies and gentlemen. How much money would you like to put down on the idea that this bread is going to be soggier than a swamp, despite the fact that Jack let it get stale overnight, and is baking it? Starting bids begin at $10.
A little chunky. Smells real good, though.
I don't like the word chunky when it comes to food descriptions. But do I even need to give a justification for that?
Let's see how it looks. Yeah. The bread's all toasty and buttery.
Some pieces are toasty, Jack. Some pieces you clearly see squish under the pressure of your fork. I'd say we're probably split. If you put money down on that bet, go to the house office. We'll see what we can get worked out for you.
Smells great. Yeah, this is really good, guys. You got a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything, meaning bread, sage, and onions.
Wow. All right, one more bite.
Okay, I'm done with this video because it's just Jack tasting the stuffing for another 2 minutes. On the counter next to the stove, does that say bacon dip? What the jingle bells is bacon dip, Jack? I don't know if this is worse. It's not bacon dip, it's a product called Bacon Up. It's just rendered bacon fat in a tub, which I'm assuming he uses to cook his food in. Pal, Jack, you're not helping yourself here. With the dressing done, it's time to move on to the main course, that being the bird, and in this case, since it's a Bob Cratchit Christmas, he is making goose rather than a turkey. At least the title says goose. We'll see if he's actually cooking goose. Knowing Jack, he'll probably be like, oh, well, I don't like goose because blah, 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 blah. Let's use duck instead.
I've lost sleep over this. I've never cooked a goose in my life. I'm thinking I've cooked turkeys beyond, but I've never cooked a goose. That's way different.
I've never cooked goose before. I can't imagine it's that much different than making a chicken or a turkey.
So I went through recipe after recipe after recipe. These people who write these recipes, there's so many steps involved. And I thought, you know what? People watch my show. They don't want to do hard stuff. They want the lazy man recipe. So I'm going to try to do a lazy man version. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you if I succeeded, where I fell short, and all that. And you can copy, alter, and twist it up. But I'm going to make it simple.
Do you ever stop to consider the things that are coming out of your mouth? If every recipe you encountered had a litany of different steps for preparing your Christmas goose, did you ever ponder the fact that maybe there is a reason for it? Maybe it's a very careful process that you have to follow step by step and can't just translate into one of your shitty lazy man versions of. If I went to Jack's house, if I were a relative or something like that, and he said, oh, I made this turkey my lazy man's way, you can bet your ass I am turning 180 degrees and walking straight back out the door. I am not gambling my health because you cut a few corners when it came to making poultry. The fact that this, the main dish, is a lazy man's version makes me very, very concerned for the video that's coming after this.
But I want to talk about a few items. First of all, Hennessy. I learned something. I don't know anything about alcohol. Okay? So I very seldom cook with alcohol, so I don't know the terminology and everything, but it said you need to use a French, all the recipes were using French brandy. Okay? Now, you may know this already, but a French brandy is a cognac. And I guess cognac is an area in France.
On this episode of Middle-Aged Dad Facts with Jack.
Put that off to the side. Let's talk about this. Prunes. Not a lot of people like prunes. You can leave this out. You can put raisins. You can put other things in there that you want.
I know people sometimes incorporate raisins and things like that into cooking goose. I think these are just here because Jack's doctor told him he had to incorporate them into his diet.
So I'm going to put some of these in the cavity of the bird. Now let's move this over. I got a few apples, some Gala apples. I've always been a fan of Gala apples. I'm going to probably just chop these in quarters.
Honeycrisp, the superior apple. I will not be fielding any questions or argumentative statements at this time.
Mandarin oranges. I have no idea why I chose this. Once again, this is a first for me. I've literally developed this lazy man recipe. it could suck really bad.
So you're just shoving shit into the bird and hoping that it tastes good? You didn't even, like, take the basis of a recipe and convert that into a lazy man's recipe? You're just doing this from your ass.
You want to add anything else? Have at it. I'm going to open my Hennessy right now. I only need about a quarter cup for the glaze. So maybe half a cup. So I'm going to just pour a little bit of Hennessy in here. There we go.
That's gonna be one hell of a fruit salad. Just a little bit, just half the bottle. That should be fine.
Save the rest for the glaze. I don't need that much anyway. All right, and just let that saturate while the bird's defrosting. Then we'll open the bird, stuff the bird, season the bird, or we'll season the bird, then stuff the bird.
You should not be figuring out your recipe for poultry as you go. Jack likes to say that he sits down and comes up with these lazy man recipes. 9 times out of 10, the lazy man's recipe is something he improvises in the video and then just claims it was a recipe at the end.
Here's the lid for this. So put the lid on tight. And I'll say, like, you know, every minute, shake it around every minute.
There's gotta be a better way to do that, Jack. I'm surprised Jack didn't just use some sort of citrus flavored alcohol. Why would he let his fruit marinate in the alcohol when he could just cut corners and do it that way?
Let's see if I can pour everything into this jar without spilling it all. This is just, once again, making it as I go along. Hey guys, so we got, you can see a little steam from the butter that we just zapped. Gonna pour that in here. Break up my brown sugar, make sure I got, put that in there. Get your apple cider vinegar, pour that in there. Put your cinnamon in there. And take your Hennessy cognac, because you're gonna shake it up. Get it all shaken.
Again, there's gotta be a better way to mix that, Jack.
So let's try it out. I'm gonna start jamming apples and oranges in there.
Nope, skip. I don't want to see Jack fingering this goose for any longer than I need to.
So we're cooking this. The directions are down below, but we're cooking this at 400 for an hour. Then we're dropping to 325 and cooking it the rest of the way between 170 and 175. Then we take the bird out. That's an internal temperature, 170, 175. Now don't freak if you have a slight pink to the meat. It's okay. I've read every website says it's okay.
Yes, with goose and duck, it is okay, Jack. Not the other meats that you have prepared throughout your life.
So USDA says it's okay. With goose, it's okay.
Jack is the last person I would have guessed would have looked up the safety FDA regulations of cooking a goose. He doesn't care how to prepare it, he's making that up on his own, but of course he's going to look up whether goose can be pink or not when it's cooked.
We're a few minutes away from doing the glaze. Well, a few minutes away from being done, so we gotta do the glaze now. That's what I'm trying to say. Trying to do 2 things at once. Guys can't do that. Women can, but guys can't.
Feminism?
Well, there you go, guys. There it is right there. I'm guessing you cut it like a turkey or a chicken.
Look how they massacred my boy. That goose looks so sad and so dry. Yes, parts of goose are dry, especially the breast, but it really is a Bob Cratchit Christmas, isn't it? This is what you would see. You know why? Because it doesn't look good. Yes, it takes a lot of work to make a cooked goose look good. And, oh, I don't know, maybe that's why there's so many steps in the recipes that Jack decided to skip.
Okay, guys, this smelled amazing the whole time it cooked. The basting, we basted with its own fat. We basted with our glaze the last 10 degrees. We did everything perfect according to all the recipes I looked at. I combined them all, grabbed the flavors that I like, and put it together. But this is the lazy man's version.
No, you did not. You did not combine all the recipes. You made up your own recipe. You've said that multiple times. Why am I surprised that I'm catching him in a lie?
All right, here we go. Here's the test right here. I think I like this better than chicken. This tastes better than chicken. More flavor. I think I'm going to go buy a duck now.
Note how he's still chewing. It takes him a full 30 seconds to completely chew that goose. But that skin, that goose leather. Now that's some good eating. And of course, since it turned out well under his standards, that means that this is another successful Lazy Man's recipe, and Jack is justified in continuing the concept of Lazy Man's cooking. Main course is out of the way. He made the dressing. He made the goose. What's left? Like he said, he's making traditional English dishes. So what better way to end this Christmas feast than with a good old plum pudding?
We did the English sage stuffing, and we're doing now an English plum pudding version, okay? So I've been through so many recipes, you have no idea. This is a recipe that scares Jack. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew. I didn't realize how intricate plum pudding is.
So, Jack is tackling a recipe that has multiple steps that is very intricate and complicated. After he just made a video where he skipped doing a good majority of recipes that he found and made his own because they were too intricate and complicated.
Okay, guys, you ready to tackle these ingredients? All right, let's start over here with the salt. All right. Here we got the breadcrumbs. Here we got the golden raisins. Here we got cinnamon. Here we got flour. Here we got brown sugar. Here we got powdered sugar. Here we got baking soda. The shredded carrots. These are the currants. These are the dates. These are the plums.
Man, Jack's gonna have a really literally shitty Christmas with all these plums that he's putting into things. I don't think Jack's actually seen any version of Christmas Carol. He heard Bob Cratchit Christmas and went, oh, that's that guy that has like goose and stuff on Christmas, isn't it? I can do that. Yes, the Cratchits had food on their table, but they were still very poor and destitute. And Jack is fantasizing about sitting at the table next to this poor kid who's borderline unhoused and eating all his food.
These are the plums. If you didn't know, some of you may not know that prunes are just shriveled up plums, like grapes are shriveled up raisins. Oh no, raisins are shriveled up grapes. Anyway, so prunes come from plums, so we're using the prunes in the jar here.
You can't, that would be like me putting grapes in carrot cake instead of raisins. Yeah, they're technically the same base thing, just one is dried up, but it's still going to be completely different. So the base ingredient of his plum pudding, the plums, isn't even in his ingredient roster.
The Kerrygold butter. We're going to take some zest off the skin of this orange. We're going to use, I said, what is the best, I don't know anything about alcohol. So what's the best dark rum in the entire store? And he said, Kraken. Yeah, Kraken. I don't know what that means. It just sounds cool to say. So we got dark rum by Kraken.
Jack's attempts at humor are my own personal Tartarus. There's a difference in quality between good cooking alcohol and good drinking alcohol. Jack says that he asked an employee at the store what the best rum they had was. If I were the employee, I would interpret that as, what's your best tasting? What would you recommend for drinking? Just because something is good for drinking doesn't mean that it's going to translate into a good baking or cooking alcohol. So Jack could have very well screwed himself with this alcohol selection as well.
Okay, so here is ground nutmeg, this is ground cloves, and we got 3 eggs. And we're going to try to tackle this recipe. Get ready. I am a little nervous because there's a lot of stuff here. I think we can do it. If I can do chili, I can do this.
Chili and plum pudding are nowhere near the same difficulty level, Jack.
Okay, guys, we're going to start adding our 3 eggs in one at a time. All right.
I thought Jack's hand was looking awfully feminine there. Hi, Tammy.
We're going to mix the dry stuff now. Do the breadcrumbs, the flour. This is the orange zest. This is the cinnamon and nutmeg right here. Salt and baking soda right here. And this is the cloves right here. This is very strong scented. I love cloves. Throw those in. All right. Let's move that out of the way. And you can see you got everything mixed in there. Not yet. Whoops. You can start mixing it like that. You can grab a fork.
One thing that I've realized watching through this series, Jack has the most buck-wild notions of how to mix things I've ever seen.
All right, guys. So we got all this incorporated, all the dry ingredients in here. It looks like this right now. Okay. So we're going to add some things. We're going to add in the, I guess it's the fruit. Is this what we're working with? Fruit. We're going to take the currants, dump those in. All these ingredients are going to be folded in. If you've ever read the word folded, it means to slowly just fold, turn it, just rotate it over. Rotate it over. I'll show you in a minute.
Would you like to be a little more useful and explain why folding in ingredients is a helpful technique? Oh, that's right. We didn't come here to learn anything. We just came here to watch you self-fillet yourself when it comes to proving how grandiose of a chef you are.
Okay. We're going to take the golden raisins, drop those in. Oop. Okay. Except for the ones that hit the floor. We're going to take the dates.
What the holy hell did you do to those dates?
Stick those in there. Take the plums.
What did you do to the plums? No, they're not plums, they're prunes. Jack, don't gaslight me like that. Those are prunes.
Folding looks like this. You just slowly take from the bottom, bring up. Take from the bottom, bring up. You're folding the ingredients in.
Ah, yes, because when I think of folding ingredients, the best tool that comes to mind for me is a fork.
We're going to use this as our mold. All right. So go ahead and transfer it into the mold. Now we got our foil. We're going to foil this over the top and tie around just right below the perimeter as tight as you can. This will hold your foil in place during the cooking process.
If you want your tinfoil to be tight, just crimp it. You don't need to tie it up.
Okay, guys, so the frosting is 3 ingredients. It's going to be, we got the powdered sugar, we got the butter, we got the rum. That's it. So let's take the, we're going to double the frosting so that we have plenty to drip over the cake.
Yeah, really, at this point, it's just the Tammy cooking show and Jack sitting there narrating and telling her what to do.
It really is beautiful and thick. But we're going to add a little bit of orange juice because the recipe says if you don't want to use rum, use orange juice. So we got some orange wedges. We're going to squeeze a little bit of juice in there.
The recipe said if you don't want to use rum, use orange juice. You used rum, and now you're also using orange juice. I don't know how flavor-wise that is going to work. I don't think it would conflict with one another that much, but I would have stuck with one or the other rather than mixing both just for the sake of not wanting to compromise anything.
Oh, careful. It's very tender. No. Okay. Is that how you want to do it?
That's the only way to do it.
It's not really level, huh? It's not
No.
a bowl. Our mold is not the most level of a lip. So we're just going to hold our hand on one side and flip it. And wow, they came right out. I heard that. There it is.
I don't have a lot to say about it. Ultimately, it looks like a plum pudding. I will say this. Tammy put more effort into this than she needed to in terms of decorating it. Just look at this.
So Tammy gave it a little extra. Went around the edge with some of the frosting. Put a little dollop on top. Got some... these are blackberries.
That is picturesque. Way higher quality than anything that deserves to be on this channel.
All right, let's give it a try. Let's knock that off. We don't need that there.
Yeah, because of course Jack's not going to eat the fruit. What do you think is healthy?
See how it tastes. I've never had plum pudding, by the way. I don't know. Is it pudding or is it cake? I don't know. Still warm. Good. This is almost like how I would have dreamt fruitcake would taste, but I've never really tasted a good fruitcake.
It's what you imagine a fruitcake tasting like, because fruitcake and plum pudding are based on the same thing. Of course, there are differences between plum pudding and fruitcake as we know it now, but they evolved from a very similar common ancestor.
It's very sweet, very rummy, all right? Go ahead and follow this recipe, enjoy your plum pudding, and let's continue to celebrate Bob Cratchit Christmas.
I think we're more than good not celebrating a Bob Cratchit Christmas with you, Jack, because this is the last video in the series that we're taking a look at, and therefore where we're going to stop for now. As always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, leave in the comments down below any other Jack videos or any weird or interesting channels, videos, TV shows that you find funny that you want me to take a look at. And if you're already subscribed and have considered supporting the channel further, you can click on the links in the description below to either become a Patreon patron or a channel member for as little as $3 a month. And thanks to this lovely person here for becoming our first Patreon patron. It really means a lot. Thanks for all your support. If you sign up to become a Patreon patron, then you can get benefits like the shout out that I just did and patron exclusive polls to choose different topics for upcoming videos. As always, folks, thanks y'all for supporting and sticking around. Hanukkah just ended a few days ago, unfortunately, but still happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all of you out there. We came so far further than I could have imagined this year, and I can't wait to see where the new year takes us. With all that said, see y'all in the new year.
We barely crawl, we try to fly. They're all still children, no two the same, yet all alike. We are worth saving, we are the only thing that matters. Inside our little minds, we are the ones we leave behind. You are the moon.